And so he gets another teen sidekick who really just kind of shows up at Bruce's door going, you're not allowed to be sad anymore. But then the second sidekick comes back alive, but he's kind of a zombie for a little bit because at one point Superman's clone punches the universe and it knocks the second Robin's soul out of the afterlife. So
we did not establish that Batman is Bruce Wayne or that his sidekicks are his adopted children.
Okay, so this is Batman.
Straight into all the different Robins. Like, how about we establish that Batman lives in Gotham, is from the DC universe, and is in a comic book? Like, you skipped like the little. You went from like Duplo to Lego Technics, and there was no regular Lego in between. Like, you got.
See, so now you understand how my brain fires, right? Sing to me, Melpomene, muse of tragedy, of the crossover, and all the anguish the ghosts carry. Sing of the birds and the bats, and the hooded revenant of the alley. Welcome to FanDive. My name is Chaos.
Hello, I'm Andy.
I'm Mallet Bonk, the temporary guest.
Yeah, Andy's here today, but not really.
I'm gonna mute myself and just sit in the corner and eat some apple slices, listening to this delightful pair.
Andy is here in spirit, pun intended.
We're gonna be talking about the Danny Phantom DC crossover phenomenon that's on Tumblr. I bring it up like almost every episode how much I'm obsessed with this crossover, and Andy has no clue what's going on, so I'm like, hey, does anyone want to sub in for this so I can talk about it?
Yeah. I've got a solid 75% idea of what it is, so
yeah,
I responded and I was like, yeah,
that's all we need. As long as I have someone to talk to about this, that's all I care about.
I'll just nod and agree until I'm like, oh wait, actually, I've read that one personally.
All right, so we should start off with the basic. Danny Phantom, what is?
I feel like we could just we can't play the intro for copyright reasons, but the entire intro of Danny Phantom is explaining what he is. So, do you want to explain what he is?
Yeah, a 14. Okay, so it was an American cartoon that, I'm gonna be so real, honestly wasn't that good, but it dealt with a lot of interesting topics and then brought them up just enough for the fandom to gather around these ideas and go, wait, there's something here. And then the show completely walked the other direction. And so the fandom has just been like on its own for so long. But let me explain the premise and you'll understand what I mean by that. So Danny Phantom, 14-year-old boy, his parents are ghost hunters. Everyone in the town thinks they're crazy because not only are these like ghost hunters who are like, yeah, the EMF is going off, but they're like building weapons. They're building capture devices. And their main thing that this like duo of like a couple are trying to do is create a portal into the ghost zone, which they claim is where all of the ghosts lives. Except the ghosts aren't actually like dead people. They're just emotions left over after people die. That's totally a different thing, right? Mm-hmm. And they finish their portal and they turn it on and it doesn't work. And so Danny is hanging out with his friends Sam and Tucker. And they're like, hey, go in there, poke around, look, see, take a picture, yada, yada, yada. And he's like, okay, let me put on this hazmat suit just in case, rip off the dad logo on it. There was a moment where they rewounded time and gave him a superhero logo. That's not really relevant. And then he goes inside and he accidentally discovers that the on switch was put on the inside of the portal tunnel. And so it turns on with him in it, infusing his DNA with ghost ectoplasm. The fandom says it half killed him. He's called a halfa. He becomes a ghost superhero who can transform between human and ghost and secret identity and yada, yada, yada.
He's the living embodiment of the guess I'll die meme.
Yeah, he is Schrodinger's cat.
Yeah, Schrodinger's boy. He was both killed in one dimension and not killed in the other. And therefore, his molecules got rearranged.
His molecules got all rearranged.
He can walk through walls, disappear, and fly.
He has such an insane power set. Like, they keep adding to it throughout the show. And people are like, oh, it's because he's still alive. He's still growing. He can get more powers. And I'm like, is it? Or were they just doing power creep?
Yeah, it's a little bit of power creep and just the tiniest bit of jumping the shark. Do you know what jumping the shark means?
I do, but let's explain it anyways.
Yeah, so jumping the shark is basically the point in a television show where they've kind of stretched the metaphorical rubber band of what they can do and where they can go too far. I had this explained to me by like an actual director, and the example that he used was in The Simpsons when Homer goes to space. That is when they jump the shark, and they manage to kind of find their way back. But anytime that you're like watching a show and you're like, okay, at this point, like they've gone too far, they've introduced too weird of a concept, or they've done something completely that just blows everything else out of the water and not in a good way, they've jumped the shark.
See, I hear blow everything out of the water, and all I can think of is Mythbusters, but that's a little off topic.
Yeah, fair enough. Do we need to explain what Batman is?
So there's this superhero, right? And he's a bat. But he's not. He's just a rich guy who has trauma. Except sometimes he doesn't, and he's just using it as like, I don't want this to happen to anyone else, And like, he at one point had like a teen sidekick, because that was cool and funny, and that teen sidekick kind of had like a moment where it's like, I'm gonna go off on my own, and so he gets like another sidekick, and then he brutally dies in front of him, like pretty aggressively so. And so he gets another teen sidekick who really just kind of shows up at Bruce's door going, you're not allowed to be sad anymore. But then the second sidekick comes back alive, but he's kind of a zombie for a little bit, because at one point Superman's clone punches the universe and it knocks the second Robin's soul out of the afterlife. So
we did not establish that Batman is Bruce Wayne, or that his sidekicks are his adopted children.
Okay, so this is Batman.
Straight into all the different Robins. Like, how about we establish that Batman lives in Gotham, is from the DC universe, and is in a comic book? Like, you skipped like the little. You went from like Duplo to Lego Technics, and there was no regular Lego in between. Like, you got.
See, so now you understand how my brain fires, right?
I do understand. That's why I'm here, is just to reel things back into the everyman.
All right. So after Tim, who was the third Robin, and like Tim has this weird moment of like, he's kind of Robin, but he's kind of not. And then there's a temporary Robin for exactly 10 days, who a lot of people don't count. She's Stephanie. Stephanie? No. Yes.
The first two Robins also had names. Do you want to share what their names are?
So the first Robin is Richard, aka Dick. The second Robin is Jason. He will later become Red Hood. The third Robin is Tim, aka Red Robin. The fourth Robin, who in my heart counts as a Robin, is Steph, who was a Robin for 10 days and then died. And then was fine again. I don't actually know how she got brought back to life. And now the current Robin is Damian. And Damian is Bruce Wayne's biological son. But his mother is an assassin from an assassin's cult who uses things called Lazarus pits. Lazarus. I can't say that word. It's green, glowing liquid that can bring people back to life. And now we start to see the connection, why it's become popular to say DC crossover, but really mean Batman, is this glowing green liquid.
Yeah. Really quickly circling back to what Danny Phantom is, because who likes linear conversations? We never mentioned that. We mentioned he was 14. We never mentioned that, like, kind of one of his main things is, like, the balance between life and death, and like living both a normal life and not, and kind of
but that's very in the show. Yeah. It's played off like it's superhero trying to balance between fighting crime and having a secret identity, but like in the fandom it's like, no, he is a balance between living and death. He is half alive, half dead. He is the moment the bridge the two universes crosses over.
Yes, and also because his parents are ghost hunters, they are in fact not a big fan of the fact that there is now a ghost superhero in their town.
Yes, because...
Speaking of which, the town's name is Amity. We never mentioned that.
Amity Park. Amity? Do we pronounce the T? I don't actually know.
Amity?
A lot of people say it's in Illinois. Technically speaking, the only evidence we have of that is a letter that got addressed to Illinois being swept up in front of the screen at one point, and it very well could have been the letter was originally from Illinois instead of, It's somewhere vaguely close to Wisconsin.
It's is that the Midwest? It's a town.
It's a Midwest. It's a vaguely Midwesty thing, right? So
Midwestish.
Yeah. There's vague, like, oh yeah, the area's kind of haunted, but most of the U.S. has like haunting stories just due to the culture around here, right? Yeah. Doesn't matter. Danny's parents are ghost hunters, and they do not know their son is half ghost, because he doesn't tell them that until the show's finale, which is something the fandom often chooses to ignore. Instead, they go, but what if when the parents find out that the thing that they're hunting is their son, they only view him as a thing that they're hunting, and thus we get all the vivisection fanfictions.
Yes. That specifically being because, like, oh yeah, no, ghosts are just manifestations of emotions, not actually conscious beings. Therefore, our son is actually just a manifestation of his emotions and not himself, therefore it is okay to kill him. It's not. But that's the logic that the Fentons, which are Jack and Maddie Fenton, are working under.
Yes, so
there's a lot of dissection fanfiction, a lot of vivisection fanfiction. It depends what state he's in.
The the fact that vivisection is one of the most common tags in Danny Phantom fandom is really shows you how much we have left the childhood cartoon that we are talking about.
Yeah, it's been like 10 years, I want to say.
The show turned 21 last month.
Never mind, I'm wrong. It's been 21 years. So this has been a kids show that's left 21 years to ferment. And one thing to note about kind of internet fandoms is the lighter a piece of media is, the darker the fan base is, and vice versa. So Danny Phantom is a pretty light show, so all the fan base is very, very dark, and Batman is a very dark series, so a lot of fan base is like, actually, they're all family, and they have dinners together. So it's an interesting juxtaposition to bring in as well.
Yes, so we should probably start. Yeah, the crossover time.
You gotta get all the wiggles out first.
Yeah, we got all the wiggles out. We explained our basis, which apparently we have had an issue on the show of assuming everyone knows what we're talking about before. So you understand where we are at, right?
Yeah.
And now, while Danny Phantom was airing, Young Justice was airing, and people started going, hey, these kind of would vibe well together. So back during the fanfiction.net phases, we started to see the first beginnings of the crossovers between Danny Phantom and Young Justice. We also saw a little bit of Teen Titans. I remember reading a couple really good ones, but like the origin was there's an established fan base that already is crossing over.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about this bit beforehand. The Rise of the Brave Tangled Dragon. It's the act of when a fandom just kind of all collectively watches the same ideas or same shows.
Yeah. Rise of the Brave Tangled Dragons. I'm gonna forget one of them. Going back to front of what that is, if you're not aware of what Rise of the Brave Tangled Dragons is. Dragons refers to How to Train Your Dragon. Tangled is the movie Tangled. Brave is the movie Brave.
Rise of the Guardians.
Rise of the Guardians. I never remember the title of that movie. I just know it's the Jack Frost
It's
movie.
the Jack Frost. It's the one where everyone's like, wait a minute, that's Jack Frost. Yep.
Yeah. And after that fandom fermented for a bit, they did add in Elsa later. But
okay, so
she never
the thing with like the Elsa thing was it was a shit between Elsa and Jack Frost, and Elsa was never properly brought into Rise of the Brave Tangled Dragons.
Yeah, but like the internet is well known for just being like, hey, we're all fans of the same thing. Let's all write stories together. Sometimes they write stories, sometimes they don't. Rise of the Brave Tangled Dragons had stories. DPDC, that is the Danny Phantom Batman crossovers, shortened name, had some. But some of the other like powerhouse fan bases didn't really. Super Hulock didn't have a whole lot of crossovers. Any crossovers you see tended to be like pretty short. There wasn't a whole lot of like, hey, all three of these are together, or just two of these are together. It used to be like hey, Sherlock manages to find out that the main characters from Supernatural are the main characters from Supernatural. Like, a lot less of that. Back to DPDC.
So, DPDC started off with just a little bit of like, hey, we like these two things of Young Justice and Danny Phantom. But in recent years, largely due to the Tumblr revival, Danny Phantom DC crossover, focusing on the Bat fam, really started to get popular. Because people started...
I believe you have, once you finish your point, I believe that you do have a Tumblr post that explains some of the origins, if you want to read parts of that.
I do? Okay.
I don't know.
Sure. I'll go through my Tumblr.
No, like, I'm breaking the fourth wall of how this podcast is made. I'm looking at the little research tab, and we have a little research bit here that we can look at.
Well, damn, I do have that.
Yeah.
Okay, what was
I read that beforehand. I'm prepared.
I'm just letting my brain flow, man.
Sarah!
It's me!
I'm trying to
Sarah,
be professional here, and I'm realizing that's not the vibe.
We have research, but I refuse. Alright, what was I even saying? Bat Fam.
You were talking Bat Fam, yes.
People started to point out that Danny looks a heck of a lot like the stereotypical Robin. Fairly young teenage boy, typically pale skin, though I think the Robin's...
Damien is not.
Yeah, Damien's not, and I think there was a couple references I read at one point that one of the other Robins were like Roma, but
yes,
I couldn't tell you if that's canon or just a fun thing that people like to say.
Yeah. The little research thing talks about it, how the crossover came first and the joke of him being an adoption bait came second.
Yeah.
Adoption bait being the term for any black hair, blue-eyed, young teen character that you look at and you go, that could be a Robin.
That could be a Robin. Half of Gotham.
I'm assuming if you've never seen what Danny Phantom looks like in his regular, Danny Fenton, I guess, in his human form.
The human form is a sad, black hair, blue-eyed boy who honestly kind of reads as a little bit trans.
Yeah, not a little bit.
A little bit, but we'll cover that in a second.
Yeah, so he's got black hair, blue eyes, sad-looking teen. His ghost form has white hair and green eyes. So he has a debatably, what's it called? It's like a debatably better hidden identity than some of the Robins who have their regular hair out. Andy has sent us a piece of research silently. Hold my computer my screen just got killed.
Dick Grayson still half Romani? I deleted Reddit user says as of the current comics, yes. Nightwing is half Romani.
Nightwing is half Romani. It has not been retconned because I know that when it comes to comics, any piece of information can be brought in or removed at will.
Well, you know.
Yeah, I'm looking. Would you mind if I read the other Tumblr or the Tumblr post that you've got in the research?
Posted by Lofty Cat.
It's talking about like Young Justice airing same time as Danny Phantom, as we've discussed, and how there were crossovers on fanfiction.net. Apparently, there was a fic called Recognized, being one of the most popular, and it was an AU where Dick Grayson and Danny were twins. It's a very common AU to make Danny be twins with one of the boys somewhere. And then I'm seeing a capitalized Stove. I don't know if that's an acronym or a person. Stove made one joke about blue eyes, black hair, snowballed. The whole Phantom Planet storyline, which is that in season 2?
Phantom Planet is the finale that everyone says ignore it because it kind of sucks.
Okay, the Phantom Planet storyline is apparently literally copied from a Superman comic. So Stove is, I think that the Tumblr user the-stove is -on.
The-stove is -on?
The stove is on fire, but with dashes between each word.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, so that's just how URLs... It's the stove is on fire. That's the Tumblr user.
Yeah, okay. The stove is on... You think I know how links work? Yeah, the-stove is -on -fire. So, what exactly are some of the... We've talked about the origins of the DPDC crossover. What exactly happens in these? Do you want to outline what one of these may look like?
Well, the typical moment is usually it's someone vaguely posting on Tumblr. I will 100% say, while this fandom exists on various fanfiction websites, its home is Tumblr. Like, to the point where Tumblr recently rolled out things called communities, which are like kind of a subsection of like doing a hashtag this or hashtag that. And the community for Danny Phantom DC crossover has almost 2,000 or 2,500 members with an active of almost 4,000 posts right now. So,
wow.
Needless to say, its home is on Tumblr. And typically they'll go, hey, here's my prompt of an idea. And the prompt will be like, Danny is twins with Damien. Danny, his mentor, the Ghost of Time Clockworks, has to take him out of his dimension for angsty reasons and puts him in Gotham. Danny, it's usually Danny leaving bad situation and entering into vaguely caring home or situation of Gotham, which is weird because it's Gotham. But again, we've mentioned like, hey, if it's an angsty piece of media, then the fandom will be a little bit more wholesome.
Because like those are the ones that are describing Danny's journey first. The ones that I tend to see are the ones that describe the Bat Fam's journey first. So it'll be talking about there's like a hostage situation going on or something, and like the kids who have been taken hostage are so incredibly nonchalant about this and just turning to one guy for instruction who's also a kid, and they're just listening to him, and they see this as a very normal day when like these kids should be terrified because they are Amity kids on a field trip or something. So it'll just be like something's happening. Reveal, it's secretly Danny Phantom.
So the Amity kids, like, in the show is like their school is constantly getting attacked by ghosts. And it's always played up like, oh, everyone's scared. But like by the end of the show, everyone's kind of a little bit over it too. So it's like, yes, let's take this whole class of people who've been like repeatedly traumatized by ghosts on a field trip to one of the most criminally infested cities in the world. Whoa, you think we're shocked by you threatening to unalive us?
Absolutely not. One of the reasons that people will write in to explain why exactly Danny would move to Gotham is that he is a half ghost, and the thing that fuels ghosts, or is their blood, or is their being, question mark, is ectoplasm in the Danny Phantom universe, which is also bright green. That's where the Lazarus Pit thing comes in. But specifically, it's like, hey, Amity is a very haunted town. There's a lot of ambient ectoplasm in the air. Gotham is a town with a lot of death and a lot of crime and a lot of villains and such.
And canonically has a Lazarus pit under it. So
yes,
pool of maybe corrupted ectoplasm down there.
Yes, and so this town also has a lot of ambient ectoplasm. Therefore, Danny can live there. One way that people play with this is, you're gonna have to let me know if this is, I'm pretty sure this is a fan-in thing, as in fan canon, that being exposed to ectoplasm for long amounts of time can cause you to be slightly more ghost-like.
So that is technically not canon, but I do believe there was a joke made at one point where it's like, why are our ghost sensors picking up Danny? And Danny's like, the lab is in my basement. I feel like that was so, but like not canon.
Yeah, vaguely alluded to, but people take more seriously. In that case, if you have people who are constantly running around fighting crime in this crime-ridden city, they're going to get a little bit. The term that people tend to use in fanfiction, from what I've seen, is liminal.
Mm-hmm.
They tend to get a little bit liminal, which is also considering that Batman is able to blend into shadows, and Mr. Flippy Bastard of the Robins is able to do the same thing in a bright red or a bright yellow cape and like red and green clothes.
Language.
Are we a PG podcast?
Are we?
You know, I'm PG myself. We never decided though.
I think we never actually agreed. You know what?
I know that. I'm sorry. I watched Under the Red Hood recently, and that's kind of a little bit how they referred to.
Yeah, Under the Red Hood is interesting because it's both is and is not canon to the comics, because like the ending and like the way that they express the ending changes depending on like animation versus comic.
Yeah, as well as how the Lazarus Pits actually worked. Yeah, but like his ability to just completely like hide in the shadows just by being very brightly dressed, they can just be like, oh, it's liminality.
Liminality is an actual term that's like a weird in-between state. And so like people is like, oh, that's kind of like a ghost, right? I mean,
like liminal spaces.
Yeah.
People tend to know what those are. Where it's like, yeah, so they're just like, oh, they're liminal. They're not a half alive, half dead, but they're not completely human either.
They're not all alive right now.
Yeah, one of the key ones that people use to spot that's not, I forgot a word, that's not Sam and Tucker, is someone who we have not mentioned until this point, Danny's sister.
Jazz! Jasmine is about a 50-50 on whether or not she is relevant to the Danny Phantom DC crossover, and half the time I see her brought up, actually, it's either she helps Danny get out of Amity Park, or she's in love with Jason, and those seems to be the only two options for the sister, and I'm like,
okay, I've seen...
There's a lot more. Like, maybe we'll throw in a Harley Quinn reference, but that's about it.
I've seen one where she is the on-staff therapist for the Arkham Asylum.
Ooh, I do love those.
It was like a longer series. Danny was a security at the Arkham.
Wait, I read that one. That's a good one.
Yeah, I don't think she was in love with Jason in that one. She might have been. I could be wrong. Yeah, but sometimes they'll bring in Jasmine. I did read... Can I really quickly talk about a good Danny Phantom fic?
Yes, go for it, but you have to link it, because then I have to put it on our Tumblr.
Oh, I don't know where to find it.
We'll describe it, and I'll look it up later.
Danny moves to Gotham with Sam, with Tucker, with Jazz, and he is under the impression that the Bat Fam are, like, guardians of this place in, like, a spiritual sense. And so we did not address the Ghost King of it all, but we can address that after I finish talking about this. He as a Ghost King is like, okay, I gotta be like respectful to these people. And so he's doing like traditional ghost offerings and like traditional stuff like that. And the Bat Fam is very confused. They're like, what's going on? But he does manage to explain, hey, actually, you guys are liminal and are spiritual protectors of this place. And like that's why you're able to do XYZ. Why Batman's able to sink into the shadows, why like all these things happen is because, hey, you're actually a little bit ghost.
Okay. I gotta talk about the Ghost King of it all. So, in the show, there is a character who is called the Ghost King. And then one of the antagonists of the show, Vlad Masters, who was Danny Phantom's godfather, but is secretly in love with Danny's mom and wants to kill his dad as a whole shebang.
And is also a half ghost.
Vlad at the start of the show is the only other half ghost in existence before he attempts to clone Danny and gets a female Danny, also known as Danny. Don't worry about it. Which is also one of the evidences. It's like, hey, if your clone's female, are you...
Yeah, all the male clones failed, and
all
only
the male clones failed. That's another conversation. So anyways, Vlad, like, tries to gain power a lot. He's very, like, evil, corrupt, yada, yada, yada. He's like, oh, if I just kill the king or something, even though the king's a ghost or whatever. And then he gets utterly decimated. Everyone's like, why'd you wake him up? He's going to destroy everything. So Danny has to, like, get help and defeat the king and put him back in forever sleep. And it's just like, the fandom takes it and is like, oh, you defeated him in single combat. No, he didn't. It was not a single combat. But it's like, you defeated him. You now have become Ghost King. And it's like, that's never touched on in the show. Never. And also, fun fact, wait, the Red Huntress, which is a whole nother conversation, is never called the Red Huntress in the original show.
She's not?
She's not. I think one time they call her, oh, you look red in that, but that's it. The Red Huntress is entirely fan fiction.
I thought she was.
No.
You can tell how little I know about the show.
Well, no, I was like, for the longest time, I'm like, no, I remember them calling her Red. And I'm like, it's that one scene where they make a joke about her costume, but the term Red Huntress comes from a fan fiction, apparently.
It's all fan fiction?
It's always all fan fiction. It always was.
Yeah, like the only thing I can think of, like from the Batman continuity regarding the Danny Fandom crossover that like is a firmly fanon thing that I was surprised is that, to my knowledge, and you can correct me, please do correct me if I'm wrong. There are points in the comics where Jason Red Hood has pit madness from being revived in the pit, but that is not an ongoing thing as it tends to be in some fan fictions.
Yeah, so the pit madness was brought up like when he was first brought back. The thing was, it's like his body was brought back, but he wasn't really himself at that time. So the pit madness was basically him being a zombie, and that got resolved pretty quickly. Like it shows up every now and then of like, oh, anger issues, but like it's the same thing with Tim's coffee addiction. Like in the comics, he's not actually addicted to coffee. He just has bad sleep habits.
Yeah. So, one of the ways that people also get Danny into the DC universe is he's in Gotham and he just sees Jason Todd walking around and goes, that guy has some really weird ectoplasm in him that's causing rage issues. Let me just... And then tries to fix it.
Let me just fix that, you know.
I don't know if the pop sound I made came over, but...
A little bit. But yeah, so, like, frequently it's like, yes, the Bat Fam are liminals, like, they're kind of not fully alive. But Jason, Red Hood, is called a reverent, which is like a zombie. Like, someone
Revenant.
who is... I can't say the word.
It's okay.
You say it.
Revenant.
Yeah, it's basically like a zombie, except it's less tied to Black culture.
It is, yes, it is, like, specifically a ghost who's been brought back by rage or anger or revenge. That's what they tend to be for revenants.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's like...
ghost lore.
You know, ghost lore. Oh, my dog just walked by. Goodbye, Joey.
Oh, I'm a supernatural fan. It doesn't mean all my ghost lore is accurate, but I know stuff about ghosts.
But yeah, so it's a very, very popular thing of like, oh yes, Danny has shown up and is now interacting with the bats. And they might be confused by the fact that he's dead. And does Danny tell them? Is he retired? Is he hiding? Or is he just kind of there just cuz? You know?
I want to make a reference, but I know that you guys have like language restrictions, but I want to make a reference to a very dumb thing.
Do it. I'll just bleep you.
Okay. Magnus Archives, there's a copy pasta about how much someone hates a specific character, and one of the lines is he dead? Is he a bastard? Which was the first thing I thought of when you said, like, is he retired?
It's not a bad word, but okay.
I've said it like 3 times. I want to be safe.
Question.
Answer.
Yes.
What is a copy pasta?
A copy pasta is... So a creepypasta is a, like, scary story that is repeated in several places. A copy pasta
I know that.
is just something that is repeated in several places for, like, a joke factor or, like, a meme factor.
Think
so,
copy-paste.
Like... Yeah, it's copy-paste. So, the copy pasta of... This is Jürgen Leitner from the Magnus Archives. Is some guy really, really hated the character of Jürgen Leitner and posted about it a lot on a Discord server. Someone read those messages aloud and posted on YouTube. And whenever someone says something about Jürgen Leitner, you will have somebody... just copy-paste the transcript of the hate rant of Jürgen Leitner into whatever the comment section is. So it's like...
Sure.
I'm trying to think of like other... I'm gonna Google common copy pastas and just see what comes.
Meanwhile, I'm going to continue on my Danny Phantom DC crossover and say it's not just the Bat Fam. There was a really popular fanfiction for a while. From my knowledge, it got deleted, but there's still references out there, where Danny was adopted by Lex Luthor, who is one of the main villains of Superman. And it was this whole arc of like, can Lex Luthor be a half-decent dad to this half-dead kid? And it was actually like really interesting. And like there was a period of time where like Danny would spend with the Bat family. But ultimately, it was more of like talking about there is a wider world to the DC crossover that we are not talking about when we're just saying Bat Fam. And every now and then, I will say this because I'm a Shazam fan, we get to see Shazam, aka Captain Marvel, interact with Danny. Because Shazam is secretly a 14-year-old boy who can transform into an adult man with magical superpowers.
I want to vouch for a crossover that I have not seen. I may not be lucky enough, but I want to see. And if there's a fic writer who is interested in this, I want to see it, please. And then I will talk about a popular copy pasta. So, Dead Boy Detectives is part of the DC universe, I believe. It's like once removed. I want to see, brief summary of Dead Boy Detectives, ghosts who have been dead for many, many years work together in a detective agency. I want to see them cross over with Danny Phantom. I've seen them cross over with Constantine.
Ooh.
I want to see it.
Oh, we haven't talked about the John Constantine of it all.
Really quickly, for a more common copy pasta to sate Andy's curiosity, the B-movie script.
Oh, the B-movie script.
The B-movie script. So anytime where it's like, yes, here's an open
get
comment
it now.
Yeah, here's an open comment section. I can input something in here, according to all known laws of aviation. Yeah, I have a good portion of the Jürgen Leitner copy pasta memorized, but it starts with swear words, which are very not PG. So
I still don't know if we're a PG podcast, but okay.
Well, I can't say the F word on here without confirmation. So.
John Constantine is a character in DC who is kind of one of the leading characters of Justice League Dark, who are kind of like, they deal with the magical, supernatural aspects of Justice League. And you think, oh, well, Danny's a ghost. He should go to them, right? And every now and then it's like, yeah, John Constantine is this guy who has a really bad habit of giving away pieces of his soul. And this is a reference to like a well-known folktale, but it's like if you split your soul among many different things and they all come to collect your soul and realize someone else also owns part of it, you kind of get locked out of claiming that soul. So it's a artificial way of giving yourself immortality because no one can ever claim your soul for their version of the afterlife.
Yeah, and also he just kind of deals with a lot of afterlife and a lot of supernatural stuff. He's just like a very tired magician type guy.
He's known as the laughing magician, but he I think that's just because he mocks the things that try to claim his soul. He's a very grumpy old man.
I've seen his actual face maybe time.
I really need to read a
he
John
wears a trench
Constantine
coat.
comic, but everyone's like, no, he's better in just when he shows up somewhere else. I'm like, okay, well then I just need to find one where he shows up.
Yeah, just find where he shows up frequently. I mean, I know he shows up in the other Dead Boy Detective show. There's, or I guess Doom Patrol, where there's a Dead Boy Detective's brief crossover.
I so thought you said Paw Patrol for a second, and I'm like,
No!
wait a minute.
No! We don't talk about those class traders, no. Anyway, Constantine. He deals with ghosts. Danny Phantom is a ghost. He's sold a lot of his soul to different afterlives and is kind of afterlife immune. Continue.
Yeah, so the options are either like Danny's like, what happened to your soul? Or Danny's like, please take me in.
The other one that I've seen is like there's cultists and like we're gonna summon the old evil ghost king. His name is Pariah Dark. I just remembered that. We never said his name.
I always read it as like something close to Pharaoh or something, but I'm like, no, it's not, because that's Tucker's whole deal, is he's the reincarnation of a pharaoh.
So these cultists in Gotham like we're gonna revive Pariah Dark, and then it doesn't work, and then so Batman is like, oh my god, you know, there's this really like evil like ghost king that we haven't met before, Infinite Realms or Ghost Zone or whatever it's called. Like we gotta deal with that. I'm gonna try and summon the Ghost King, and then he goes to John Constantine, and John Constantine's like, no. He's like, well, they said it didn't work because there was a new Ghost King, and then John Constantine's like, there's a new Ghost King, and they're terrified because whoever can beat Pariah Dark in combat is probably very spooky. And then they summon the actual Ghost King, and it's like, hey.
The 14-year-old wet cat of a child.
It's a wet cat. He's like actively has a coffee mug in his hand, and he's like in an old, like ratty, like high school hoodie. One notable fic I saw. I'm sorry, Andy. I'm gonna put you on a search list again to go find it. Danny changed the ritual to summon the Ghost King. And he like crowned the Ghost King as a bear, like a ghost bear.
Oh.
And just said, yeah, no, he's the Ghost King now. So you have to summon him, and therefore you can't use him for rituals. The other one I saw was Danny and Danny, the woman, both had the crown, and so they would just keep punching each other in the summoning circle to transfer the crown back and forth, so they wouldn't have to ask questions.
Oh,
because it's
we haven't even talked about Dan yet.
We gave her a little bit, but we also haven't talked about Dan. So
okay,
how about we talk about Danny, Danielle, and Dan?
So Danielle is the clone of Danny. However, in an evil alternate timeline, Danny's parents explode in front of him, and so he goes down this like evil, insane route, and he like destroys the world. And then this older version of him, who, for the record, is not just evil Danny, but after his parents died, Danny was taken in by Vlad, and he's like, I need you to rip the ghost part of me out because I'm sad. And so Vlad's like, okay, and then he does it, and then the just ghost part of him is like, that's a snack in front of me, and then consumes Vlad's ghost half, and that's ultimately what creates Dan.
Alternate timelines, baby.
Wild, because we do meet Danny's ghost half just on his own in the episode where Danny splits himself in half with a ghost catcher, and he's just like, I'm a superhero, and I'm not gonna go into it, but yeah. Dan,
you can see how we defined jumping the shark earlier.
But Dan destroys the world and then goes back in time. It's like, my timeline isn't guaranteed, and we know this because Danny's version of a mentor figure is Clockwork's the ghost of time, and so Dan goes back in time to try and kill his parents to ensure that Danny gets taken in by Vlad, so he's guaranteed to exist. But then like Danny defeats him by using skills that he learns by watching Dan fight, and then he goes to Clockwork's and gets Dan put into a ghost container jar forever, and it's like that timeline is destroyed, but Dan is still around, but then nothing ever happens with Dan, so he's just kind of in a tube for eternity. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And then in some crossovers, Dan gets his own body and just kind of hangs around as an upset older brother.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff.
There's so much stuff.
There's also, because there's so many, there's a pattern in Danny Phantom, as there's a pattern in a lot of kids shows, where they'll introduce a very unique concept, and then because it's a kids show, they can't really get into it. Like, they can't talk about like being a border between life and death on like a TV show designed for like 7-year-olds, because it's like that's really dark. So the fandom looks at it and goes, "Woohoo! We can play with this," which is also because that's why there's so many avenues for like DC and stuff to sneak in, is because it's like, oh, we've established that there's an infinite realm of afterlives that this portal has access to. There's a lot to play with there.
I think at one point there was a thing brought up, and I don't know if it's stuck around in canon, but someone said something about the anti-ecto axe. And that has brought so much into the Danny Phantom DC crossover, because it's like, it's a reason for ghosts to be hunted, and Danny can use that as a way to get away.
Yeah, as to what the anti-ecto acts are, at least in the fan base, is basically acts from the government saying, hey, ectoplasmic beings, anything with ecto-contamination, are not sentient creatures, and therefore you can experiment on them, you can kill them, you can do what you want. Which, considering we've already discussed, Batman and the Robins can be seen as liminal or ecto-contaminated people, that means that they would be at risk as well.
And so we got a lot of angst coming from Danny Phantom side of things.
A lot of angst, a lot of things. There's also, in the topic of the anti-ecto acts, the other one is the Guys in White, or the Ghost Investigation Board.
We haven't even talked about the GIW.
They're a direct parody of the Men in Black, and then they got a lot more serious when the fandom got a hold of them.
Yeah, they hunt ghosts, but they're really bad at it. But they're government funded, so everyone's like, "Ooh, scary antagonists, yada yada yada."
They're in Danny Phantom. They're called the Guys in White. The fan base gave them the name Ghost Investigation Board, and basically, if you ever want to, hey, I'm on the run from agents, I need a place to stay. That's where the DP.
And they're very noticeable, too, because they're just a large man in very white suits. So everyone's like, you know them when you see them. Like, keep an eye out for these guys.
They've never learned the meaning of undercover.
Wait. This is just a long episode, so I feel like I'm just going to start throwing things at the wall. I do not know the origin of this, but for some reason, everyone loves to give Jason a little red duck, usually wax. Sometimes it's an actual like rubber duck, but it's like a red waxy duck.
I've never heard of this.
You haven't? Dude,
I've never heard of this.
It shows up in so many things. Like, I even saw at one point there was a thing on AO3 where it's like a collection of Jason getting little red ducks in crossover fan fictions, and it was like huge.
You need to understand. Just to put this in perspective, I currently have 50 rubber ducks staring me down because I collect them. I have a rubber duck in my desk chair. I have never heard of him receiving a duck of any kind.
So like, I have no clue where it comes from, and every time I try to look it up, everyone's like, haha, isn't it funny? He always gets a red duck, and I'm like, where is it from? Why is this just a thing in this crossover that it happens all the time? And I remember there was this one really popular fan fiction that it showed up in, but I don't think that was the origin, because like the one time I tried to look it up and someone's like, yeah, it's from this thing from like 2023, and I'm like, so that giant fan fiction only started publishing in 2024. So where is this from?
Yeah, you're just going down a rabbit hole.
I'm just going down a rabbit hole.
Really quickly, I'm going to bring something up, and then we're not going to talk about it in depth. This episode is way too long if we do. So we mentioned how Danny Phantom is inspired off of Spider-Man. That's kind of superhero stories, as well as the black hair, blue eyes adoption bait. Because of this, there are several other superhero fandoms that cross over into the universe. Of course, Spider-Man being a big one, as well as Marinette Dupain-Cheng, miraculous. She has blue eyes, and depending on your interpretation, black hair.
It's black hair with blue highlights.
Some say it's blue, some say it's black, some say it's black.
It's the thing with the Spider-Man suit where it's originally a black suit, and they kept adding like, yes, this is how you tell where his arm ends and this chest begins by this blue highlight line that we draw when the light hits it. And everyone's like, oh, his suit's blue then, right?
It's not a blue highlight exactly. One, black is a print, and two, if you have black outlines on a black outfit, you're not going to be able to see anything. They used blue as a substitute for black for the entire thing, and then they changed to blue highlights, and then they eventually just changed to dark substitutes for black. So Batman got a black outfit, but Spider-Man still stays blue. Marinette Dupain-Cheng is 3D animated, and therefore does not need that distinction, but her hair is still like debatable. it's black, but they made it blue for clear animation, or blue in reference to the previous use of blue as black. But it's meant to be blue. That doesn't make sense.
Well, I have no, I'm gonna be so real. The Miraculous Ladybug. It's like I saw the fandom passing like a ship in the night, and I'm like, oh, maybe I'll check that out. And I just couldn't handle the animation of episode 1, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna let someone else do this.
They've made a new one that's got better animation, but not to get super into the fan base.
We're here to talk about Danny Phantom DC crossover, and every now and then a ladybug shows up, and that's okay.
Yes, a ladybug shows up, occasionally a cat noir shows up alongside, and occasionally more stuff happens. But I don't want to go make Andy find another fan fiction.
I think Andy's just confused at this point.
I think at this point I'm gonna get a cease and desist letter in the mail. Oh, I've been given evidence of the duck!
Can I offer
they're finding red ducks.
Oh, this is just red duck memes. Danny DeVito, can I offer you this nice duck in these trying times? Red Hood, I sell floating duck candles and floating red duck accessories.
Red duck. Yeah, he's got a t-shirt that says just ducking around. He's got a baseball cap with a red duck on it. And he's holding a red duck. I've got a red duck on top of my computer, actually. I'm gonna bring him down. You can't see him. Oh, there's a meme. There's a meme of Andy. I've never seen this before. One of my friends is hyper-fixated on Red and is making every single Batman movie.
For the context, the image Andy just sent was a Red Hood bleeding out on the street with some person doing a thumbs up hovering over him.
That's Danny.
Okay, apparently it's Danny, and there's just a little red duck candle placed on his head. You gotta send us the links to these things so I can share them on Tumblr.
As well as credit the artist, because neither of these have a picture on.
Thank you.
Okay.
I will. They will be up on the Tumblr. I appreciate you very much.
Yes.
Wait,
wonderful.
Of Nor Redner's glorious red duck candle from their fanfiction. If you give a burger, that is the fanfiction I was talking about earlier. I'm so sorry, Joey. We did it. We found the origin.
There we go.
We win the podcast.
You're fighting off lost media with a stick. We now know the origin.
Normally we do like a Q&A section, but we've gone 20 minutes over our podcast time.
Are we gonna skip the Q&A?
You know what? Hey, Q&A, you were telling me earlier about there's this show where a main character died. What the hell were you talking about?
Okay, fair warning. If you have not seen Season 8, Episode 15 of 911 on ABC, I kindly suggest you look the other way. I don't want to spoil this for you. I'm gonna give you 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so they killed Bobby last episode.
I don't know who that is, but apparently it was a big deal.
Okay, so Bobby is the captain of a fire station called the 118. This show is a firefighter procedural show. The 118 is the main cast. This man named Evan Buckley, people call him Buck. He is the main character of the show. The 118 is basically a family. Bobby is introduced as someone who is trying to stay distant from the people in the 118, despite being the captain, because of some losses in his life that we learn about later. Specifically, that he was the cause of a tragedy that killed 417 people. And he eventually finds out that he has a special thing with his blood that allows him to save people if he donates blood. It's called Golden Blood. But that's basically what he is in Season 1, and he kind of becomes a father to the entire team, and especially to Buck. It has been a well-established thing that no main character will die in this series. The show got moved from Fox to ABC, and they have a new director, and the choice he made... I'm gonna skip over a lot of the plot holes in this particular episode, but just know that there was a lot of plot hinging on the fact that Bobby was the only one not infected by the virus, or at least not, contaminated, and then they revealed that he was in fact contaminated. So all of the things that he did because he wasn't contaminated are now all in jeopardy. He's going to have a very short final speech with Buck, his pseudo-son, and Athena, his wife, and then he is going to collapse, die, and be carried out in a body bag and be the first official death.
And that's where I'm gonna have to edit that down to be.
I'm sorry. I got passionate.
So much information just packed in there, and I'm like, wait.
TLDR, in case all of that just gets sped up as I'm talking, they killed a father figure after establishing that nobody would die to literally anything if they were in the main cast. And they did it in such a way that completely undermines his entire previous storyline of learning what it is to live for yourself. And they did not include a crucial main character's reaction being physically seen, but they didn't even like call him or mention him in the episode. That's the quick summary.
Yay!
Yay! You feel free to speed through that entire several-minute rant beforehand.
Damn. Well,
you can post a non-sped up version later if people want.
I guess that's been our
That's DPDC for you.
Yeah, that's Danny Phantom DC crossover, red duck and all. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of FanDive, with special guest star Mallet Bonk. We'll be back again next Monday diving into yet another fandom. Have a topic or question for the podcast? Head over to our website, fandive.tumblr.com. There you can also find any episode relevant images and general shenanigans that we get up to. It is Tumblr, after all. We're not afraid of being fans of things.